Well, I
idea.
had a client in the past year who purchased, I want to say it was about 20 identical handguns.
Oh, that'll get you though.
It
It
didn't.
didn't?
Yeah.
The same gun?
Yeah.
It will. We are the Armed Attorneys. Christmas is right around the corner and Santa's got a bag of Glocks. So we're going to talk about what to do if you want to gift a firearm to a loved one. What if they're in your state? What if they're not in your state? What are the best practices? But before we get started, show your support for the Second Amendment by hitting the like button.
And good. I visualized it. I visualized.
We didn't discuss that one
No,
beforehand.
we didn't. But, there's a couple of things at play here. We have federal law, state law. We have kind of best practices when it comes to documentation. And just, there's some pitfalls people fall into when it comes to this stuff. We want you to avoid all of that. But first off, when we look at federal law in transfer of firearms to residents of the same state, it's pretty bare there.
It is. And of course, right, federal law. So sit tight because we're not talking about your specific state's law yet. But in terms of the federal law, as long as you're not trying to transfer interstate, I mean, the federal government cares little, which is great.
Yes, the only two prohibitions we have are, residents of other states, so let's say you live here in Texas, you have a relative visiting from Florida, transferring them a firearm. The federal government cares.
Yes.
The other thing that they care about is if you knowingly transfer to a prohibited person. So think of that list of folks on 18 USC. It's in 922 is actually where it lives. But it's a very similar list about what you'd see on an ATF form 4473. If you know or have reason to believe this person is prohibited, that's a no-no. But really, when we're looking at federal law, it's pretty.
It is.
Apart from that, it's not a lot.
And knowing, I think it's worth taking a second to kind of talk about what that means, because it doesn't mean that you can't make an honest mistake because a person lied to you and you had no idea. So,
Right.
I mean, if you are gifting to, your cousin and you have absolutely no idea that your cousin has been convicted of a domestic violence misdemeanor, right? Let's go with
Sure.
that, right? So they never went to prison. You have no clue this happened. You say, hey, you're allowed to have guns, right? And they say, absolutely, I am. And you say, congratulations, here's your gift. I don't see that there's a knowing element in
No.
that sort of scenario. Whereas, let's say that you are with said cousin and you're chatting and you're going to gift that cousin a gun, and your cousin's like, "Oh man, check out my new identification," and it's their,
Prison card.
their prison card, and you say, well, they didn't tell me that they had been to prison, so here's your gun. Well, that's probably a knowing violation, right?
Yeah.
So the bar is high. The bar is high. Don't be an idiot is pretty much the standard there, I would say.
Right. And so the big no-no on the federal law, residents of different states. I wanted to go through this law because there's two interesting points here that I think are worth noting, not necessarily related to gifts, but maybe, hey, you let them borrow a gun while they're here. So let's see what that looks like. This is in 18 USC 922A5. It says, it shall be unlawful for any person other than an FFL to transfer, sell, trade, give, transport, or deliver any firearm to any person other than an FFL who the transferor knows or has reasonable cause to believe does not reside in the state in which the transferor resides, except that this paragraph shall not apply to the transfer, transportation, or delivery of a firearm made to carry out the bequest of a firearm or acquisition by intestate succession of a firearm by a person who is permitted to acquire or possess the firearm under the laws of the state of his residence, and the loan or rental of a firearm to any person for temporary use for lawful sporting purposes. So, that's our prohibition on, hey, residents of different states. Two important things there. Somebody passes away, their estate's been administered, or this sporting purpose loan.
Yeah, and that's, we when you think about transfer, right? Because it's illegal to transfer to someone who is a resident of a different state, but a temporary loan is not a transfer. So you're going to the range, right?
Yeah, maybe the gift is a great experience at the range.
Sure. I mean, you just want to, you just want them to try out while they're in your state your gun, and you're going to give them a temporary loan of it. That's completely fine. I mean, I will say, technically, although not a great idea, I do know of people who are trying to get around that interstate transfer law, will give a gun to a resident of another state who's a family member and say, this isn't a permanent transfer. This is a loan,
Sure.
but it's a loan for the next 1 year of your life. People will try that. I personally I wouldn't risk it because what is a temporary loan? And then you're going to litigate that. And do you really want to? I mean, do you want to get charged with federal crime?
No, and the, lawful sporting purposes component of that, we see a lot of folks, hey, family just moved here, or they're going to be residing out of state, or I have a kid going to college out of state. They need to protect themselves. Is that going to be considered a sporting purpose? I can imagine a court is not going to interpret,
Sure.
Everyday carry for self-defense as a sporting purpose. But all right, so federal law, not prohibited people, not, residents of the same state. We do have to look now at state law.
We do. And your state's law will vary. If you live in a very free state, go with God. Slap a bow on the outside of that box, and there you go. Merry Christmas. However, there are, I mean, even the very restrictive states, though, other than registration requirements, generally speaking, gifting to an immediate family member even falls outside most of their private sale laws, right? I mean, generally, you don't have to engage in FFL for that.
Right.
Notice all of the generally and all of the couching language here because each state's law will vary. But it's normally pretty easy to gift to an immediate family member. And we're normally talking about, and again, restrictive states, and we're normally talking about wives, husbands, mothers, fathers, children, grandparents, generally what, about 2 degrees of sanguinity is what, qualifies as immediate. So it's good. You still need to worry about your registrations. You still need to worry about your firearm owner's identification cards and the like if you live in one of those states. But, it's pretty good. Pretty easy.
Yeah, but the checklist that I just came up with in there, maybe I missed something, but, does your state require background checks for private transfers of firearms? Are there age restrictions? Is it limited to family? Is there registration? Is there a waiting period? Is your state's prohibited persons list more expansive than federal law? I can't imagine, some states are. And then finally, is the firearm itself or the accessories accompanying the firearm, are those legal in the state? Because, you want to check all those boxes. Maybe there's other ones. Please leave them in the comment section below. But if you're in a free state, most of those things do not apply.
Correct. So, I mean, I would say there is one other thing that I would think about when gifting firearms, which is, are you going to buy more than one? Because normally it's not like, oh, I'm going to get a gun for each of my children. But normally I hear husband and wives get a matching set sometimes for Christmas. That's a joint Christmas present. So just know that if you buy 2 or more handguns within 5 consecutive business days, that FFL dealer is going to send a report to the ATF that you purchased multiple handguns within this period of time. What's the ATF going to do with it? I don't know. I have a cop friend who bought a whole bunch, not even all at once, but just like over the course of about a year or so, and they were all different, and he's a collector. And this was back in year of our Lord, what, 2010, 2011, 2012 maybe. He actually got a knock from the ATF. That is the only time I've heard of that happening. And there is a lawyer at our office whose name might rhyme with Schmedwin, who, I think at auction once purchased, I won't even tell you how many.
Yeah. Well,
it was a lot of guns all in one day at auction, and he's never gotten a knock from the ATF.
Well, I had a client in the past year who purchased, I want to say it was about 20 identical handguns.
Oh, that'll get you, though.
It didn't.
It didn't?
Yeah.
The same gun?
Yeah.
It will.
I mean, we'll see. Only time will tell. So, but all right, so we got our kind of state law. And then the one other caveat, and this is just a reduction of risk if it's not written into law in your state, is transferring a firearm, gifting a firearm, knowing the person's going to go commit some crime with it. If they're like, all I want for Christmas is to knock off a liquor store, and you're like, here's your gun.
I thought you said knock up at first.
I think I did say knock up.
No, you said knock off. You're good. You're good.
It's
definitely off, not up.
Either way is good. Either way is good. But if they're going to go commit a crime with it, hey, guess what? Maybe you're opening yourself up to liability here. Now, just to back up just a tiny bit, let's say you reside in different states. What is the way people accomplish this gift, right? It's FFL to FFL transfer. You go to your local gun store, you find where your relative or friend or family member you want to gift the gun in their state, what gun store they want the firearm shipped to, you ship it there. The FFL in their state will actually make sure, hey, guess what? This person is eligible to receive this firearm, comply with all their state laws and whatnot. And so, that's the way around that problem.
And alternatively, although no one does this, assuming that your travel with the firearm is legal all through from your state to their state, you can also go through one FFL, you drive to their state, that transfer has to occur at the FFL dealer in their state. If you can legally get yourself and the gun to that state, you can do it that way too. No one does that, but that's also legal.
You can do long guns out of state, but
only at an FFL dealer.
Correct. Yeah. And all right, caveat. So let's say you live in a state, person is visiting, you want to transfer them a long gun, so rifle, shotgun, not handguns. Theoretically, you could go to an FFL in your state to transfer it to the out-of-state resident. The FFL is going to facilitate the transfer. They have the discretion to transfer the firearm to them so long as the firearm's legal in their home state. Here's the problem. Lots of FFLs not willing to engage in that behavior. They are not up to date on every state's gun law. Maybe there's more restrictions. We've seen a lot of lawsuits for firearms that were improperly transferred.
It came up at a movie theater shooting in Colorado.
Yeah. So Academy doesn't do it anymore.
That's why
Was it Academy?
I think it was Academy.
Okay. But all right, documentation. What does that look like? No federal law requiring documentation. You'll have to look to your state's law. Is documentation required? I'd say the majority of states say no. But here's things that you want to keep in mind, because we do have the Bipartisan Safer Communities Act. They removed and messed with some requirements of what constitutes engaging in the business. Guess what? Bona fide gifts, completely exempt from all of that.
Yeah.
But you just want to make it clear, should you decide to document, or if it's required, make sure that it's clear, hey, guess what? This is not a sale.
Yeah. Reasonable minds will differ on this. I have people call me all the time and they say, I'm going to engage in this gift or this transfer or this sale, and what in the state of Texas do I need to do it? And I will often send them a blank bill of transfer so that they can do that and document it. But I'll also tell them, I generally wouldn't document it. Cash only, no papers is my motto now.
Sure.
And so, it's, again, reasonable minds will differ.
But here's why maybe you do want to document. And if these criteria may apply to you, hey, maybe it's a good idea. If you don't care, then it doesn't matter. But let's say this person has the gun stolen from them in the future, them being able to prove ownership, it's really for your giftee's benefit. Or let's say, stolen, shows up at crime scene, gets traced back to you, being able to shoo the ATF along saying, hey, guess what? This is out of my possession. Again, I don't think documentation is needed for that. But
it shouldn't be.
Right. But I would say the biggest benefit in my experience is giftees being able to prove that they own the gun.
That's fair.
So we covered a lot of ground here. We hope you enjoyed this discussion. If you did, consider subscribing, hitting that like button, and help us fight the anti-2A algorithm by sharing this video.
And Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, get yourself a gun.